Greetings, welcome back to Black Bear News, which is the most progressive channel on YouTube. Why is this the most progressive news channel on YouTube? Because most other channels tend to talk about politics, and they also don't have the hairline that I do. But yeah, politics. Oh, and we should worry about climate change. The thing is this, we're not gonna, all of the things that we're talking about, Medicare for all, or, getting ourselves out of war, trying to vote a progressive into office, trying to make, trying to enact all the social, justice-y kind of things that we want to enact, all the, the social safety nets that we want to put in place, the reining in of Wall Street, et cetera, et cetera. Beyond being very difficult, I want all these things to happen, no doubt. And I try to talk about these things when I can on this channel, but all of these things without the perspective of climate change just don't matter. It just doesn't matter. And none of the other progressive channels are saying, are putting climate change front and center. I mean, it has to be front and center. I like erasing student debt. Bernie Sanders just announced that he would, plan to erase student debt, and he wants Medicare for all, et cetera. We can talk about all the other candidates. Personally, for me, Bernie pretty much encapsulates all of the progressive, the to-do lists for progressives, and climate change. So if our climate is going to be, if we have 10 years to save ourselves, or 5 years or whatever it is, if you're not talking about in the light of climate change, what is it that we are doing, or what is it that we must do, or what are the actions that we must be taking right now? If that isn't the first thing you're talking about shit. If we, have massive crop failures across the world, this year we have massive problems in the U.S. planting crops. Canada is also having some difficulties. France just had a huge storm come through and wipe out a bunch of crops. Australia was reported to have to import wheat. So we're talking about something that's happening right now. We're talking about climate disaster right now. I just read a story about India facing a massive drought, clearly affecting farmers there. So they're losing. They have crop loss affecting them. So we're talking about politics as usual, or business as usual, or how are we going to push these great new ideas? How are we going to change the face of government? How are we going to have some kind of revolution when the possibility that we might be starving, that we might have climate refugees within our own nation in the space of 12 months before the next election? If you're not talking about that, what the fuck are you talking about? If that's not the first thing you're talking, if you're not like really, really worried about this, if you're like, yeah, Medicare for all and, Green New Deal and yeah, all this stuff. But like, if you're not clued into the fact that there might be a climate emergency just around the corner, that there might be a climate emergency within the U.S. or within the first world countries within the next one or 2 years. If you're not clued into that, I don't know where your head is at. I don't know where your mind is at. I know it's like totally fun. I'm addicted to political channels and what's going on and who's saying what, and I love all that stuff. It just doesn't matter though. I've been having a little bit of, I guess, a spiritual struggle the last couple of days, listening to different arguments. I just read an article the other day about the Greens and why are they playing God, and there were some, there were a lot of good. I read that article because I knew that it was going to spur some debate, and a lot of the debate was good, and I really, came up against the idea. I really came up against the idea that there is no point to doing anything. There is no point to taking any action. There is no point to worrying about it, because you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. If you draw down industrial civilization, you basically kickstart the aerosol masking effect, going away, and you kickstart temperature rise. The force of the predicament kind of hit me over the last couple days. That being said, in the United States, there's a serious lack of panic. There's even though XR is doing things and other movements are doing things and people are talking about it and people are becoming more aware of it, but there is a serious lack of immediacy in how people are acting towards this, and it's frankly alarming, because when I talk to people about this, or when I try to talk to normies, or people who might not be aware of the situation, it's startling. Anyways, I've got things to do, kind of reaction, or well, that sucks, let me just keep on keeping on, because we're just really enjoying our lives over here. In other countries, however, there are serious actions going on. People are really waking up to the enormity of this problem, and they're like, "Hey, we've got to do something. Something must happen." So this is going to happen as we go forward, and as it becomes very, very painfully aware to people that we are in the middle of a slow-moving catastrophe called climate change, and that we're in the teeth of it. People are going to start saying, okay, what are we going to do? What's the plan? What's the action? And that really to me is the point of letting people know what's going on, because we need to talk about what it is we're going to do in the face of this, or what it is that we can do in the face of this. And woe be unto the person that tells a newly awakened convert to the climate, catastrophe, to the Doomersville. If you tell them, welcome to Doomersville, there's no hope, we're screwed, just relax, get comfy. There's a lot of just regular ass people out there that are going to be like, okay, so it's time to do something. And again, that leaves me kind of perplexed and at a point where, what is it that we're going to do, or what is it we're supposed to do? People are going to be really angry, pissed, and scared. So and I don't have an answer. Again, things that might possibly work, I have a lot of answers, for that. A possible plan, a possible path forward, some way to go forward. Yeah, I've got plenty of ideas about that, but how do you really enact, sane solutions or sane actions in the face of utter panic? We're probably doomed to start doing some really stupid things, like geoengineering. Anyways, I don't know. I guess that's what this video is about, is I don't know. I went for a nature walk the other day with a friend at a place. It was near the seaside, and it was, what was it called? Well, it was like a protected area, I guess. But it was so ridiculous because it was next to the ocean. It was like this, whatever, estuary type habitat area. Very small, and it's surrounded by housing developments on one side, and a main highway on the other side. And as I'm walking through this area with my friend, there's just trash everywhere. There's guys walking around in full hazmat suits doing I don't know what. And there's trails, just people walking around, and there's just trash everywhere, and it looks like shit. And I'm just like, what is the point of even having this? This is completely overrun by, it's surrounded by industrial civilization. It's surrounded by the maw of destruction, and you're allowing people to just walk through and go, oh my God, look, it's so shitty. It's, there's barely anything left here. That really reignited my idea that we really need to just get the fuck out of wilderness and leave wilderness alone. And if we're already overrunning certain areas, I mean, we shouldn't be there if there's these habitats on the ocean that, are totally necessary to the ecosystem. Like why is it surrounded by housing developments and gas stations and cars? And then you have trails through it to allow people to like walk through and, trample around and throw litter into the lakes. It's just so ridiculous. We're just, I guess I'm feeling, I'm feeling really screwed at the moment, but that's just what I'm going through. And this is a long old ramble. This whole video could be a ramble, but maybe I'll give you all some short news. So I don't know. It was hard for me to get a verification on this, but there are a couple videos that said Kuwait. I saw a couple of things, but not a few things. Kuwait recorded a 63 C temperature on Saturday. So this is from June 15th. A few days ago, 63 C, which is something like 140 degrees or 145. I don't know. And then this is a picture from this video. I'm not really going to play the video. Here's another video that shows a palm tree catching on fire. Come on, buffer. Got some. Look at this. Just spontaneous combustion. So I don't know what caused these trees to just light on fire, but they're talking about, just amazingly hot temperatures in Kuwait. So good times. Here's another headline that's, gives you the warm fuzzies. Most of the world to face record high temperatures every year without serious climate action. Every year. This is from June 17th, 2019. And they actually do reference this Kuwait situation where local media recently reported high temperatures of 145 Fahrenheit. How do you even live through that? How do people I don't know how people stay alive through that. 145. At what point is it instant death? At what point do you just lay down and just give up the ghost? I don't know. But, extreme weather situations are happening all over the place, all over the world, especially in the northern latitudes. Somebody just basically sent me the temperatures in Alaska for the next week, and they mirror Los Angeles. Yeah, that's not normal. I mean, we have surprisingly low temperatures, but 70 into the 80s for Alaska is surprisingly high. That's definitely abnormal. I don't know if I'm going to finish with this article because I feel like this video has gone very long. We'll give it a go, shall we? This is from Robert Hunsaker, June 21st, 2019. Permafrost collapses 70 years early. Fasten your seatbelt. Global warming is on a rampage. As a consequence, many ecosystems may be on the verge of total collapse. In fact, recent activity in the hinterlands surely looks that way. Over time, the backlash for civilized society, where people live in comfort, could be severe, meaning extreme discomfort. But still, nobody knows when or how bad it'll get. As it happens, an ongoing climate catastrophe like the show-stopping catastrophic collapse of permafrost in the Canadian high Arctic, more on this later, is hard evidence that climate scientists have been way too conservative for too long. Did you like that little voice thing? Evidently, they never expected climate change to hit with the force of a lightning bolt. Still, in all, and in fairness, climate scientists have been warning about the dangers of global warming for decades. Now it's happening in spades. It should be noted that America's politicians are guilty of ignoring warnings by their own scientists. Those warnings officially started 31 years ago when Dr. James Hansen, then head of NASA Institute for Space Studies, testified before the Senate. Global warming has begun, expert tells Senate. This is from 1988. The New York Times article of 31 years ago went on to say, if the current pace of the buildup of these gases continues, the effect is likely to be a warming of 3 to 9 degrees Fahrenheit from the year 2025, that's now, to 2050, according to these projections. This rise in temperature is not expected to be uniform around the globe, but to be greater in higher latitudes. That's where the permafrost is located. Global warming is prominent throughout the North. Ergo, climate news doesn't get much worse. Well, actually, it could and will. Then the collapse of permafrost in the Canadian high Arctic's extreme coldest region. Observed maximum thaw depths at our sites are already exceeding those projected to occur by 2090. That's chilling. The aforementioned study, this is from the source of that was from Climate Change Drives Widespread and Rapid Thermokarst Development and Very Cold Permafrost in the Canadian High Arctic. It's from the Geophysical Research Letters, June 10th, 2019. The aforementioned study from 2003 to 2016 found permafrost melt up to 240% more than previous years. In geological terms, that's like winning the Indy 500 hands down. That permafrost had been frozen solid for thousands of years. Accordingly, scientists predicted the permafrost wouldn't melt for another 70 years. Yet, the landscape has already collapsed by up to 3 feet. Not only is permafrost collapsing, it's reported that houses are sinking into the earth in parts of Alaska, Canada, and Russia. Alaska's 92-mile road for Alaska's Denali National Park is moving off center by the forces of slip-sliding land. Not only that, of course, bad news oftentimes begets more bad news. Here's the bold-faced truth about global warming dilemma. The global warming dilemma. The world is not braced for a turbocharged climate and collapsing ecosystems and burn-off of agriculture in mid-latitudes. Remarkably, even though global warming is one of the most recognized terms in the world today, nobody is prepared for the onset. Scandalously, and not only that, progressive presidential candidates and progressive newscasters aren't preparing people for this onset. Because nobody wants to say it's that bad. People still want to say like, oh, we got to do something. We got a couple years to get worried. Nobody's willing to go to the point of, it could be right now. It could be this winter. It could be next winter or next summer. We could see an ice-free Arctic next summer. What does that mean? What does that mean to the presidential election in the United States in 2020 if there's an ice-free Arctic and our global food supply collapses? But nobody's talking about Medicare for all then. They're talking about, oh my God, what the fuck do we do now? That's what they need. And that's what they need to be talking about. So get real progressives. Let's go back to this. Scandalously, America's role in the crisis is akin to actually a carbon copy of the extreme arrogant smugness of General George Custer's leadership directly headfirst into the world's most celebrated mass slaughters. For additional evidence of out-of-control, crazy, zany global warming, a photo of sled dogs traipsing through water up to their stomachs on Greenland's icy surface recently went viral as Stefan Olsen, a climate scientist in Danish Meteorological Institute he's over there, led his team to retrieve equipment at a weather station, but the normal icy freeze-up wasn't normal any longer. William Colgan, a senior researcher at the Institute, commented, "It's very unusual to have this much melt so early in the season. It takes very rare conditions, but they're becoming increasingly common. Rare climate conditions that increasingly become common define dangerous, disruptive climate change." Bottom line, the top 25% of the Northern Hemisphere, where permafrost is ubiquitous, is coming apart at the seams, and climate scientists are behind the 8 ball, while America's politicians deny the legitimacy of science and openly spit on the underlying thesis of anthropogenic global warming. What can be done about that? After all, America's political system is on trial before a world community that fully embraced the Paris 15 to restrain global warming as it watches ecosystems in America's Alaska collapse and emit more carbon into the atmosphere, based upon 2 years of airborne measurements, than all U.S. commercial CO2 emissions biannually, which of course merely serves up as supporting evidence for the absolutely shocking drop-to-your-knees news about the 70-year too early permafrost collapse. These instances of collapsing permafrost are deafening bell ringers and exactly the type of awful news that presages runaway global warming. In point of fact, Farquharson's 70-year too early permafrost collapse makes the onset of RGW look like a dead ringer. But when? Still, nobody really knows for sure how horrible it will be for society at large, but it's a 100% guaranteed to upend capitalism's rampant, if that's a word, growth machine, functioning ecosystems, and roughshod capitalism that willy-nilly consumes ecosystems, punctuated by the advent of plutocracy, don't jive very well. Maybe a change is in order. There's no getting around the fact that ecosystems are collapsing. The evidence is too palpable to ignore. It's serious, it's deadly, and it could be too late to do much to stop it. Other than a last-ditch World War II Marshall Plan worldwide consortium dedicated to converting the world to renewable energy or something, and forcing removal of CO2 from the atmosphere or something. Those solutions take years and years of planning, setup, construction, and billions upon billions of funding. It's not happening. Again, we're trying to move an entire, a society that's basically gone completely conservative and right-wing, our political, society that's basically totally right-wing and almost completely outright. It is fascist, but mask off fascism, trying to move that into some kind of almost lefty realm when we need to be actually, talking about hair on fire. What are we going to do? Because, our global food supply could collapse in the next, 1 to 5 years. So we should be planning for that right the fuck now. That's what we should be doing. We should be bringing all the troops home and taking our entire massive military budget and putting it on this problem. And meanwhile, we should be giving people health care and food and, houses and mental health care. We should be doing all of that. And education on how to stay alive in a 3C world. All the other, arts, arts and crafts, that people learn in college, totally not really relevant unless you're talking about, medicine. We need a massive mobilization, that we're not going to get in 2020, in the 2020 election. Meanwhile, carbon has been trapped in and under permafrost over eons, ready to escape to turbocharge an already oversaturated Turbocharged climate, it's literally happening right now. The waiting room is already full. Farquharson's study proves it, and Alaska's permafrost carbon emissions that compete with U.S. commercial CO2 emissions prove it as sled dogs wade through it. It's postulated that runaway global warming, which could wipe out huge swaths of civilized society, starts in the north, where few people live. Egad, they're already seeing it. That is all I have for you in this video. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so at the links below. Until next time, peace. Where is my guy?